Hi, everyone, and welcome to a Talking Insomnia episode. Big welcome to Ilona.
Hello.
Did I say it right?
Ilona, yes, you got
Yes, you
it.
did. Very, very well.
Yeah.
All right. So, for anyone that don't know you, you were my client in BedTyme a while back, and and
Yes.
and remind me, was it? Did you send me an email and this prompted me to invite you, or how did this actually happen?
No, I started watching your videos and about a week in, I decided that I was gonna do bedtime. So I signed up for bedtime and then I got the message from through bedtime. And that's
Yes,
how we started. And that was I got some dates on here. That was June 14th.
June 14th. Yes,
That's when we started. And I've already at this point, I haven't slept already 3.5 weeks.
got it.
Yes.
Got it. And now remind me, I'm kind of almost embarrassed because I don't remember, but this how did I end up inviting you to be a guest on the podcast?
Well, we talked about it when we were messaging on bedtime, and
Yes.
then I guess I think I wanted to do it sooner, but I when I was having like speed bumps, I like didn't want to do it, so I kept kind of like pushing the time, and then which is very interesting because I wanted to do it because I was doing really well, and I'm in a speed bump right now. So this is very interesting that it's happening like it started like a couple days ago and I'm just like, oh, I don't know, maybe it's the pressure going on the podcast or whatever, but so yeah, so it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, no, it can often be like that. And we'll definitely talk about that. I have many
Yeah.
thoughts to share on that note. But anyway, so glad you're here. And with that said, tell us the story. How did this start? How did you start having trouble sleeping?
So about so 3 weeks before June 14th. So May, I have dates. May 19th was the first night I didn't sleep. I was already going through a lot of stress in my life. My life is always stressful. I'm super type A. Like we moved to Florida, a lot of things going on. Then COVID. I hurt my back. I had a UTI that wasn't going away. I had side effects to medicine. It was just like a bunch of things, and like I live my life like up here already, so it was just like whoosh, overflow. So I say now in hindsight, I'm like, insomnia was inevitable almost, right? So so I decided that I'm gonna get rid of social media and my like I feel like I was like on social media news and all that too much. So I thought that that was also contributing to a lot of my stress. So I just said I'm gonna quit. So I quit like everything. I quit all social media. I quit using my phone outside of like just basic stuff that day. So like May 19th, I quit.
And
That
sorry to interrupt, but was this basically because you had trouble sleeping one night and then you
no, this is before. So this was just because I felt a lot of stress and I thought, everybody's like when you stop going to social media, you're gonna feel better. It had nothing to do with sleep. In
got it?
fact, I was a really good sleeper where I slept like 8, 9. Actually, at this point, I was sleeping like almost 10 hours because I was actually a week before the insomnia started. Because I was going through so much stress, I was telling my husband, I'm like, thank God for sleep because with everything going on, like I get to go to sleep and say bye bye to the world for at least the night and kind of reset in the morning. And this is like literally a week before. So of course, this all starts right after I say this. So it wasn't sleep wise. It was just, I just wanted to better my life. It was like I was trying to do something good for myself, which backfired. So May 19th, first night, no phone. First day, no phone. I put it in my closet and I was fine. I had a good day. I was totally fine. I'm not craving the phone. I'm not like whatever. I'm spending a lot of time with my kids. We went to the pool, whatever. Everything's good. That night, I don't sleep. Like very little. Like I think I slept like an hour. The next day, I'm like, I'm making a joke out of it because I'm like, oh, see how addicted I was to my. I'm telling my kids like they're teenagers. They're 18 and 15. So I'm like, look, the phone is so bad. I'm not sleeping. Obviously, I'm going through a withdrawal from the phone. Next day, good day, even though I didn't sleep, I'm totally fine. I'm like, I'm a little tired, whatever. But my adrenaline is starting to build because I'm like, I've always been very sensitive to not getting sleep. I always told people that if I don't get 8 hours, like anything below 7.5 hours, I'm already getting anxious. This is like throughout many, many years. This is why I hate traveling. Like I like traveling, but I hate the part where you don't get a lot of sleep or jet lag. It already affects me so much. So, but I was still fine because I'm like, I'm pushing through. Like, this is really good for me. The next day, this is when it started to get hard, like really hard, because I didn't sleep at all, like zero sleep. And it's getting worse and worse. Like, first night, I got like an hour, maybe two. Then, but at least I fell asleep. Then I woke up. Then the second day, maybe I had a little bit. Then the third day, I have no sleep. Anxiety is through the roof. Like, my heart rate at this point, and I'm already anxious from before, but my heart rate was like regularly like 120, 110. Like I couldn't get it down, not whatever. I'm like, okay, I'm still gonna go and keep doing this. So I don't go on my phone. I'm still like, oh, at this point, I'm like going on YouTube and I'm seeing about like iPhone or like addiction to the technology, addiction to social media. But the thing is, what was weird is I wasn't craving the phone. I didn't want to be on the phone. It's not like I was like, oh my gosh, I have to go on the phone. I have to check this out. No, not at all. I was totally like happy to be off of it. I don't sleep again at all. And now I'm having these bad thoughts. I'm thinking something is wrong with me. Anxiety, like my anxiety is through the roof. I'm getting really depressed. I'm feeling like scared. I had like a feeling, and I've been through a lot in my life and I've dealt with anxiety and panic attacks, but this was like a fear inside of me that I couldn't even put a finger on it, you know? And then day 5, I'm already losing my mind. Like I'm already thinking I'm losing it. Like I started having really like suicidal kind of thoughts. Like I was just thinking hopeless. Like I'm never gonna sleep again. My life is over. I just want to die. That's how I feel like I don't want to be here. I don't want to be like living like this. And at this point, we're already searching. My husband's like freaking out to like sleep doctors, already like looking at like hypnotherapy, like all the things like sleep efforts were on high at this point. And remember, I quit the phone, so my phone and my technology use was like part of my routine in the evening. So it was almost like a bedtime routine, like without realizing it. And I took it away without trying to make my sleep better. I just took it away. So at this point, I'm still not using my phone and I'm trying to do all these different things without realizing that I'm, turning the lights down, like just meditation music, like little, music that was like soothing music, white noise stuff, what all this stuff, melatonin. Also, I took the Benadryl, and I actually I had a reaction to it that was really insane. I've had that happen before, but not to this extreme, where I started shaking. I didn't sleep all night, and I bought the weighted blanket too, which, by the way, it's like Florida, it's hot, it's like the worst idea ever. Like, don't do that. So I'm like shaking, I'm having panic. It's giving me like weird vibrations, and I'm having like weird stuff happening to me. So then my husband found, how psychiatrists, like you can't get an appointment with them. It's like impossible right now. So I found a guy who's actually a nurse practitioner, but he's a psychiatrist, like a psychiatrist nurse practitioner. And my husband, all he said was on the phone, my wife hasn't slept for 6 days and she's like losing it right now. Like I know what to do with myself. I was like walking back and forth, like I was so restless. So he got me in, and it was the longest. It was like 11 o'clock when he called him. It was the longest 5 hours of my life. Like I literally got the appointment at my brink, and we ended up in the car just driving around, and I was just, my brain was so bad. I kept wanting to like open the door and just like like I don't know, like open the door so I can get out of the car like while I was driving. I kept thinking like things like that. So finally I'm at the psychiatrist and I look like death. I'm so depressed. I feel it was the worst feeling in my life of my life. Like I can't even like, it was so like, I'm just thinking about it like sends me back. So he prescribed me Seroquel and Ativan, like a dose that you give to somebody that needs to be knocked out. And I remember asking, because he worked in like a mental health area before he started his practice. And I kept asking him, is this going to knock me out? Like I wanted to be sure, like, cause I was like, I couldn't sleep. Like I was having, the hallucinations. I was having the jerks. Like it was so insane and intense. And he's like, yes, this will knock you out. He's like, trust me, this is what we give to people when we want to knock them out. Like this is the dose. He's like, take this. And then he wanted me to take it every day for until I see him a week later. So I took it at like 6:30. I couldn't wait. I was in the car and I'm like, just, I had to get some food. And I was like, I needed to take it. Within like 2 minutes, I started, weird. The Ativan kicked in and I've never taken this stuff. So I was super sensitive and I knocked out for like 8 to 10 hours. But it was the weirdest experience. It was a scary experience, actually, which is a whole nother podcast. Like it's a whole nother situation. And then I didn't want to take the pills anymore. This is where I started. This is where this is where I got freaked out, because like my sister has dealt with like bipolar and PTSD and all this stuff that I always avoided. Even when I had anxiety, I avoided all medicine. I was very afraid of taking any of this stuff. But so I would not take it, then I wouldn't sleep again. And then I would go 2 nights without anything, and then I would take it. And then I would go again, and then I would go to another doctor. Like I went to a PA to do blood work to make sure there's nothing wrong with me. And then she gave me like another medicine, trazodone. And then I got olanzapine, and he had me on Seroquel. And I was like, this stuff is not working. So then I found you. And then I remember watching one of your videos. Well, I binge watched you like nonstop, night, day, whatever. And you talked about making it like a vitamin, like a supplement, like taking these things like more like a supplement. And that really, and I also started seeing a counselor, and she told me, she's like, well, why don't you just stick, because it looks like I'm yo-yoing so much that it's actually causing a lot more harm, and I'm not able to bring the anxiety down. I'm not able to, like, one day I take the pills, one day I don't, whatever. So I'm like, okay. And then obviously you told me you were talking directly to me from your videos. And so I started following that. And this is when like things started to get better. So I decided I'm just going to take it. I'm not going to worry about consequences of, benzos. I was so afraid of the benzos. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to get addicted. I'm going to end up in like rehab. I mean, it was like the worst. I was thinking the worst. And that's kind of how I found you.
Yes. Oh my gosh, what a story! Like you tell it so well, Ilona. Like you took us there, like to where you were, and you can sense everything that's going on. And now, I just you made myself really curious. I mean, don't share anything you don't feel comfortable sharing, of course.
Yeah.
But what was it like, that experience when you took the medications and you slept, but it's still like it wasn't a pleasant experience at all? Like what happened? What was that about?
Okay, so like the first night when I took it, it felt like it was a circus in my head. So it didn't even, it went in 2 seconds and then I was awake, but it was I thought, let's just put it this way. I felt like somebody could give me surgery that first day, and I didn't care. In fact, my heart was beating so hard and it was so loud in my head that I thought I was dying. And I told my husband, I'm laying on the bed. I'm like, call 911. I'm like, something is wrong. And I was so like feeling high that I was like, oh, whatever. Like, if I'm dying or if something is my heart, I'm having a heart attack. It's okay. Like, it was so weird. I was like so out of it. But I was okay because I was like, okay, like this is better than like what I've been through because either way it's bad situation all around. So but then the second time I started to get okay, so I started to learn about this. So I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I'm taking an antipsychotic. Like my sister was on this stuff. I know my sister was on this stuff and my sister's been through so much. So I've seen her journey with a medication and that I was like I had this bad, taste in my mouth. So I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm taking antipsychotic. This is like this crazy, So, but then I started having side effects of Seroquel because I'm sensitive to Benadryl, and Seroquel actually acts on similar. Sometimes it has an affinity for the histamine receptors, which my body can. So I would take it, and then I would feel once, so not every time, only sometimes, burning. My body was on fire for the whole night. Like my body felt like I was literally on fire and I couldn't sleep. So sometimes I slept like a baby, and sometimes my body was on fire and I couldn't breathe. And my mouth was so dry that like, but it's weird because it wasn't happening every time. So that's why every time I took it, I was like, is this going to be the night that I'm going to sleep a little? And I know I never slept like unless I took a high dose. I started lowering the dose because I started to figure out that I needed to match the Seroquel with the Ativan. So if the Ativan was too low and the Seroquel was too high, that's when I started getting these reactions. So I started to play with the dosage, and I would do like higher of the benzo and less of the Seroquel, and then somehow it would help. But it wasn't like um at first right, because you were saying that another thing that helped me was that the pills don't actually make you sleep. It's like, and they don't. And I later on I learned I had a like a magic moment, I guess you can say, where I slept for the first time without anything. And the way that it happened was, well, this is like shortly after I met you. I remember I was having a really, really bad day. I didn't sleep. And the doctor said, if you get anxious, you can take Ativan. And I'm like, no, I don't want to take this. I don't want to take this during the day. I don't want this to be part of my life. But I decided that I'm like, I'm going to take it. And I took it at like, I don't know, noon. And it wore off by 6. I fell asleep after it wore off on the living room. Like I have this little moon pod, and I passed out for an hour and a half for the first time, like 4 weeks or 4 weeks or 5 weeks in. And my husband and my kids were celebrating. That's how it was so bad for me that they were literally, oh my gosh, mom is sleeping. Mom is sleeping. Oh, mom is sleeping. And it was like the best thing that happened because I got that sleep confidence. It was only an hour and a half. And it was, so I learned that it wasn't that I needed, by the way, I wasn't trying to sleep. I took the Ativan so I can relax and not feel like crap. And after it wore off is when I'm like, I was chilling, and all of a sudden I just conked out because I was so tired. So it had nothing to do with me trying to sleep. And that's when I had like a light bulb went off. And that was the first day where I was like, okay, I can do this. And then I started to, and then I knew that the pills don't make me sleep.
And
You
was
know,
this was before we had started working in the app, right? Or was this after?
so this was, I think this was right around that time. It was like, so it was like way, I was already, I think I was already working with you. But it was very shortly after where I had that moment. And from then on, I started to think of like, okay, I'm going to take these pills and then just to get the anxiety down. And then slowly, and also I was put on, because the one of the psychiatrists, this is a whole nother story, but I went to another lady because I ended up at the emergency room because of the Seroquel. I had a really bad reaction and I didn't sleep all night. I went to the emergency room. My psychiatrist, the one that prescribed this, was not available. In fact, at first I didn't want to work with him because, I've never worked with a psychiatrist. So I realized like how it is. Like, it's not that simple. Like, they're really busy and you can't just get squeezed in, whatever, unless it's like a real emergency. So I went to the emergency room. They can't help you with anything. They're like, in fact, I thought that they looked at me like I was a drug addict or something. Like, I was like so tired and I was so desperate and I didn't know what to do. And they're like, oh, we can prescribe you the high dose of Benadryl, that one that, and I was like, are you kidding me? I cannot take this stuff. So my husband called the psychiatrist and he's like really like stern, like, we're in the emergency room right now, we need to see you now. So we ended up going there. It was a Saturday. He actually stayed later for me. And I don't remember like what happened. I don't know if he gave me he told me try a bigger dose or something, whatever. I don't even remember. Um, but that's kind of where I was still yo-yoing between, taking this much of this or taking this of this. And I started to slowly lower my dosage, little by little. And what happened was I was still sleeping the same amount of time when I was lowering my dosage, like exactly the same, right? Like, it was no different. The only difference was that I had less side effects. I put on like I put on like 8 pounds on the Seroquel because I was eating, and I'm a very like lean like person. I work out, so to me it was like, oh my gosh, like, not only that, but I'm gonna get really fat from eating like at night. I'm eating around the clock. Like, I'm eating during the day. I'm eating at night. I mean, like, my husband's putting like, okay, we don't even eat butter, but like he's putting like butter in my noodles because I'm like so hungry. He's like fattening me up because he's like, you're always hungry, just eat this. And then I was like, I can't do this anymore. So I started lowering my doses. And then I got off the Ativan. So I got off the Ativan. I was put on Valium because the psychiatrist said that it's going to be easier to get off of that, and you can use that a little. It's a little bit. It's not so much like this. It's going to keep you a little more. And then little by little. Oh, the first night that I got, and so then I'm on the Valium. Then I'm slowly lowering the dose again, along with the Seroquel. And then on July 27th was the first day that I fell asleep, not on purpose. I fell asleep without the Valium. And because I fell asleep, I never took my Seroquel because I had a time where I take the Valium, then I take the Seroquel like an hour later. And I slept, okay, I only slept for 1 hour, then woke up 1 hour, woke up 1 hour. But I didn't care. I was so happy. I was on cloud nine. I'm like, oh my gosh, I slept without any medication. But I was also put on Lexapro by another psychiatrist. So when that guy wasn't available, I had another one that I had an appointment with scheduled from before, and she put me on a baby dose of Lexapro. So, and then I never went back to her. So it was kind of like a blessing because the Lexapro actually helped me with the anxiety with me being able to taper. I mean, it just helped a little bit. It wasn't like anything crazy, you know. And then so now I'm at this point where I'm every night I'm sleeping a little bit, but I'm still experiencing like, oh, I stopped experiencing the hallucinations. I was having some sleep paralysis. I was having a lot of hallucinations. I was having those vivid dreams, or just crazy stuff was happening to me while I was on a medicine. When I got off the medicine, that all stopped.
Wow. Sorry there, I was coughing a little bit. Now, and now, kind of in the story here, how how far into the story are we? Like, how long have you had? How long since the insomnia started now?
So it started in May, and now, so it's like 7 months now.
Oh, 7 months now.
7 months since it started, and about 6 months
Oh
since I
yes,
started with
yes,
you.
yes. Oh, I understand now. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Now today we are 7 months from when it started. But uh,
Yes. So
like in your story,
at
when you're
that
talking about
point,
like,
so I would say this is now probably, um, this is like, August is when I got off the meds, the like all the Valium, everything, because I started tapering. And when I tapered and got off the Ativan, that whole week I had a really hard week. And I was sending you messages then, because I was like, I had headache for a week. I was going through like kind of like the mini withdrawals, with my anxiety. The anxiety was like higher, but I was hopeful. It's like it didn't even matter because, well, it did matter, but I knew that I can sleep. I just knew. And this is, I knew that I can sleep. I knew that it's going to be a long journey, because actually what really helped me, I was later on, I watched, I love Coach Michelle and Coach Ali. Like, they're great. So, Coach Michelle was talking about how, like, there was an episode where she was saying, I'm not gonna lie, it does take a long time for your body to not constantly wake up. Like, I would be always up every hour. Like, it seemed at first it was every hour, hour and a half. Then after some time, every 2 hours I would wake up. Then every 3 hours I would get like two cycles. But every time I wake up, um, because I had a dream, that gave me a lot of peace. Like, oh, I dreamt, that means I slept. And then I would just lay there, and I started to ask my husband. So then it was every hour and a half, 2 hours, and 3 hours. And I would ask him, I would wake up in the middle of the night. I would say, how am I doing? How am I doing, baby? He's like, you're doing good. And then he started saying, you're doing very good. And then he would say, you're doing very, very good. So it wasn't like how long it's passed, but it was like I knew based on what he would say. Or if I know that it's only been a couple hours, he'd say, just keep resting, baby. Just keep resting. So I knew exactly, like, I'm like tricky like that. Like, I'll like, know exactly what's going on. And then I told you on one of the email messages where I was like, I know exactly what time it is, because I live in Florida. We've got frogs at certain times. You hear the frogs, you hear certain birds. I live in a jungle. Like, my whole backyard is trees. Like, I have a lot of privacy. So all you hear is like owls. The owl comes out at night. I know what time it is. And then the construction, the garbage people, whatever. So like I'm always aware. I'm super like hyper vigilant. And so it started getting better. And then I remember, so I'm a little bit of a neat freak. So the story is that I haven't cleaned my floors since this started. So I kept telling my friends and people, when I sleep 5 hours in a row, I'm going to clean my floors. And then I slept 5 hours, and I'm like, when I get 6 hours, I'll clean my floors. And then I got to 9 hours, and I still haven't cleaned my floors. Now I have the mop system in my Amazon cart. Okay. So I slept. So there was a time, yes, I had my 1 9 hours straight through. Um, so it's a very, and I had a lot of speed bumps along the way. And like I said, I'm in a speed bump right now. I had 2 days now that I slept very badly. Last night, the night before last, I barely slept. And then last night, I I slept, but it was like crappy sleep. But I was like, okay, but it was because my schedule was thrown off. So now I'm starting to, okay, so I have like, I don't get as I don't get as frustrated, where I part of what you were saying about giving yourself, like being kind to yourself, which um that's a huge thing for me, because when I blame myself, right? Like, this is like part of what I do. A lot of the things, like if something goes wrong, I blame myself. And so when I was having frustrating nights when I couldn't sleep, it was like, what's wrong with you? Like, why? What did you do wrong? Like, it's always like berating myself. And then I started to be nice to myself, which was kind of like strange at first because it was like, who are you? Like, who are you? Like, who's talking to you? So I started being nice to myself, and I started to say to myself, like, you can't control sleep. Like, all the things you talk about, like the little things about you can't control sleep. And then I tried to, like, when you try to trick your mind so your mind feels embarrassed, or for me, it was like my mind feels stupid. Like, what's wrong with you? Like, duh. I can't control this. And then I start like, um, okay, but don't get me wrong. So like, even though I've come a long way, when I have my speed bumps, it's still not so easy. It's easier, but it's harder in a lot of ways, because I feel like, especially the last 2 days, I feel traumatized by my experience. And when I sleep well, I don't think about it and I feel good. And then always when I brag about it, like, well, I know I tell people, I'm like, oh, I've been sleeping. That's when I have a speed bump. And it's hard because it's not when I wake up in the middle of the night and I don't go to sleep like fall asleep right away, I'm okay. It's when I wake up an hour after I fall asleep, like what happened last night, I get really angry. And the anger comes from that residual fear and that trauma that I experienced, that, like, I know I can't go back there, but I'm not so sure. Like, I'm pretty sure, but I'm not so sure, because when you're in the moment of this happening to you, sometimes it's hard to like, how do I say it? Like, yeah, you could be rational, but there's the emotional part of you. And that's what gets to me. So like, I have this rational brain, like, you can't control this, it's okay, da 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 da. And then there's this like, like, I don't know, like, and then I get like kind of like a kid, you can't make sense of it. So that's kind of where I'm at with the speed bumps. Um and of course there's like little triggers for me too with the sleep. Like, but what's really good is that when I don't sleep now, it's usually because I'm very much aware that I'm hyper aroused because of something. And what this insomnia kind of did is it made me kind of search of the things that used to bother me, that I used to like kind of um, keep inside of me. I can't do that anymore. It comes to the surface now. So when I quit my phone, and the phone was a distraction for me for all the stuff I went through in my life. The phone was a distraction for me. So when I got rid of it, everything that I ever went, like all the trauma just bubbled up so hard that um, even things when I thought that I had under control, that I used to talk about nonchalantly. Like, I'll talk to people, oh yeah, this happened to me. I had panic attacks and I dealt with this trauma. Yeah, blah blah blah. And I would act like everything's fine. But when the insomnia started, all that stuff that I was talking about that I was fine, was I was not fine. All of a sudden, these crazy feelings, like I didn't know and I felt fear, like I didn't know what fear was, like, until this really like blindsided me, and now I'm working through it. And I know, like, Ali talked about it and you guys talked about it, where um like it's almost like the matrix, and like once you kind of see the matrix and you understand it, you kind of see it for what it is, and you can take that and like apply it to other areas of your life. And it's very much true with me. It doesn't make the road easy. It's pretty tough. And it's like, it's a lot of work I have to do that I was forced to do. That's why I was saying it's like a blessing in disguise. During speed bumps, it doesn't feel like a blessing, but the speed bumps are the blessing, because if it wasn't for every speed bump I have, I do, in a sense, once it's over and I'm like, okay, I'm sleeping again, whatever. Then I realized that it was, it benefited me in some way. So, I have to tell that myself right now because how I feel right now. But I mean, that's part of the journey. Oh, and Allie's little chart, the one where it says, that's in my phone, and I go and reference that like all the time. I'm like, okay, I'm not here anymore. I'm right here. I think I'm at the top. I think I'm at the top. When is this gonna end? So I do have that that yep.
Oh my gosh, yeah, you've I had some thoughts I was going to share with you, but you basically kind of answered your own questions already. But I
Yeah.
just want to share one thing that was on my mind here, see how if it resonates with you, which is this idea that I think Ali has and I have too, which is that but it was really Ali that said this, that uh, when when you have this period where you're starting to sleep well, then at some level there may be this idea that, okay, good, I got this, I figured it out.
Yeah.
The reason that speed bumps are so painful, that it's because no, you didn't have it figured out, and then it kind of forces you to see that, oh, there's nothing to figure out, there's nothing to control. It was actually the absence of that that led to it. But it's kind of painful to see that we don't have control, and we have to sort of repeat that over and over till it's
Yeah.
fully ingrained. Does that resonate?
Yeah, it does. And another thing is like like when we when you have the bedtime app and it asks you the questions, and you're like, okay, the people that are more like certain like goal like driven and like type A, whatever, like that's why I was saying it's like inevitable for me. Like it had to happen at some point in my life. It's that I have a thing with control, even that's why people that think that they can control their sleep, and I talk to people about this all the time, that they're not in control of it because it's like a lower brain function. It's just like breathing, like you're gonna sleep, whether you like it or not. You're gonna eventually sleep. So but it's the control part that this is really working on, that part of me. So in like I look at it as like I said, like a blessing, like that it's going to help with other areas of my life, even though it already is. Okay, there's like, because it is helping. It's just that at the same time you're going through this thing. It's like it's not just like a do 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 everything's gonna. It's like it's very very messy. It's very very messy, but I am kind of like chilling on the control part. Like I you know, I'm trying. I'm trying, you know what I mean? So, but yeah, just exactly what you said. I feel that.
And now, I know you've sort of already said this, but I think it's well worth repeating because there's so much to learn from it. Is that I think, if I put it in my words, you saw that in retrospect, that kind of always being on social media, engaging with your phone, doing things like that, in a way was a way to sort of buffer emotions that you
Yeah.
didn't really want to see. And then when you let go of that, all these things that had been kind of like hidden or suppressed, they came to the surface. And so in a way, like I was thinking, when you let go of the phone, you immediately had this kind of a lot of stress happening, which it can seem like, oh, so it wasn't probably a good idea to let go of the phone. But ultimately, I think it seems like that was a great idea, because you were made to see all these things and be aware of them, etc. Is that true?
Yeah, totally. And when so when I was going through this and I was trying to figure out, because at first I'm like, I thought it's like I'm going through like a phone withdrawal. But then as I started like researching deeper, it's not that simple. It's not. The reason people go through these things is because like the reason people do drugs is not because like there's a deeper issue there. That's why they get addicted to certain things, because they don't want to feel pain. That's we're preserving ourselves. We don't want to feel pain. And everybody has a different thing. I've been and throughout my life, I've self-medicated in ways that everybody does it in different ways. Everybody does it in some way or another, whether you think you are or not, you are. And social media now, and like the phone, like the constant, like my brain is likes information, and like the Googling and like the doom scrolling, like it's like the dopamine hit. Like that first day that I quit the phone, what happened that day in the evening, I got this like depressed feeling. I was fine all day, and then this like depression came over me. And I was like, okay, this is from the phone, but it was like you don't realize how much it affects you until you let go of it. And then what happened was like by the time 4 days came, like 4 days went by when I'm not sleeping, I tried to go back on my phone. Like I try to like redo. I'm like, no, forget it. I don't want to go through this. I'm just gonna get off of it slowly. You can't. The floodgates have been open. It's too late. It's too late. And all the feelings, like whatever trauma that I dealt with from childhood, it all just came up in a way that was so painful, and so it blindsided me. And so when I went to that other psychiatrist, she like diagnosed me as having PTSD, depression, generalized anxiety disorder. And I know that I have, you know, I know I don't like to like label things, because especially with, I know people that deal with these things, and my sister and that. So, but yeah, I mean, it's true. You have trauma, and it's still there. Oh, I started doing like, another thing I was doing like somatic therapy and all that stuff for trauma. And, I never went to the hypnotherapist, by the way. And I never when I started talking to you, I literally quit those appointments, because I knew, I'm like, the sleep study, I'm like, okay, I know there's nothing wrong with me because I don't have sleep apnea. And then the whole the fatal, what is it? The
Insomnia.
fatal insomnia. So it took me like one day to know I don't have that. Like I like as soon as I watched your video about like, so people with fatal insomnia actually don't have a problem with, like, they don't actually think that they're not sleeping. I'm like, that's definitely not me. Check. I don't have to worry about that. So it wasn't like I was not freaking out about that. It was more like my mental health and my sanity. Like even my body, like I'm into fitness and whatever. It wasn't even that. Like I wasn't so worried that I'm gonna like die of like not sleeping. I was more worried like I'm literally gonna lose my mind, and I'm gonna do something that is not gonna that I don't want to do to end the pain. And I don't feel like that anymore. But when I have my speed bumps, which I like I said, it's like I'm fine and I'm not. There's a part of me every night, like if I like right tonight, I can tell you what's gonna happen is I'm not gonna think about it. I'm gonna go on with my day, but it's gonna come into my brain throughout the day about sleep tonight. And then the hardest part is to not do anything different, and not to think about, like, to just go with my like what sets me off is going to bed too early. And I'm not an early, like I go to bed late, but I'm talking about going to bed a little bit earlier, even like sometimes you're fatigued, but you're not sleepy. But sometimes when you're watching TV, your eyes get tired because you're like staring at a screen, and you feel fatigued, maybe mentally and physically, and you think that it's time to go to sleep, but you're not actually sleepy. And that is where I start to second guess myself when I have these speed bumps. That's when I start to like I start to revert, like when you don't have a speed bump, you're like, you got it, you're pretty good, but then now I'm like, so yeah, and then the night comes, and then um all of a sudden you're like, it's already this time. I don't know, you know what I'm saying? So like that's kind of where my brain goes. Um my last speed bump was daylight savings, totally threw me off. And that whole month, like I was sleeping really well. And then this whole month was like I was sleeping, but I would wake up at 5:30 or 4 every morning, and then I would be up, and then I would fall back asleep. So like that, but I'm like, I'm okay with that. I got my hours. I feel fine. So I'm not super picky. Like I can go on 5 hours of sleep, 6 hours of sleep now, fine. Whereas before I would probably cry like a year ago.
Right. Yeah, and I was thinking about that because you had said earlier that you're a person who, if you don't get a certain amount, you
Yeah.
know, that really affects you. But then there were some points where that seemed to not actually happen. You seem to be okay, or is that something that's changed? You're sort of more okay, even if you don't get.
Yeah, it's kind of all relative. Like when you've never the only time I've ever had insomnia, or not insomnia, like a sleepless night, was before and if I used to compete in like fitness competitions like bodybuilding. So like the night before a show, I just didn't sleep. It was just like, oh, I got maybe a couple hours toward the morning. Like it's just like impossible. Like I already know I'm not gonna sleep. The night before a flight, like if that's I don't fly in the morning. I fly at like a regular time, like 11 o'clock. I don't do morning flights. I know I'm not gonna sleep well. I already know. Like anything big, anticipation, that but then the next day I sleep. When I used to drink, I don't drink alcohol anymore, but when I used to drink, I used to I didn't sleep. Like even just after a few beers or a few couple glasses of wine, that night I just didn't sleep. It was like the worst. Like,
Yeah.
so I actually, at one point I was like, I'm done with this. Like, I don't even want to drink at all because it just messes up the next day. I don't sleep and I feel, and I hate not sleeping. Like it was always a very hard thing for me, but the next day I just went to sleep. So I've never had like 2 nights of like no sleep. And even when I had my kids, so with my daughter who's younger, um my husband and I decided that we're gonna do like every other day. I had a business at the time, and he had a regular job, so we both worked. So it was fair, like every other day, whatever. After 2 weeks, he said I was just useless to get like it was like in a loving way. He's like, "Baby, just let me just take care of the baby at night." And I was like, oh, "Thank God," because I'm like a zombie. So he would take care of the baby at night after whatever, and then I would take over in the morning. And then and that's how we know in our house that the kids tiptoe around me. Like in the morning, he wakes up super early. He's not a very good sleeper. He's not a good sleeper. But he is a earlier. He doesn't go to bed without me. By the way, my husband, the whole time of the insomnia, he slept the same as me. The same. He didn't get sleep. He could. My husband can fall asleep. He's probably sleeping right now in his chair because he just passes out. He can sleep like this, but he wakes up early, and then he's 5:30, he's already up for the day. And he is very laid back. So even when he doesn't sleep, he doesn't get anxious about it. He's just like tired, and then he just takes a nap or something, you know
Yes.
very opposite of me. But the whole time, if I'm not sleeping, he's not sleeping.
Wow, that's amazing. He did that.
Yeah.
I think I have to sort of. I have a meeting in a few minutes, so we have to wrap up a little bit. But uh, there was something I want to say. Oh yeah, two things. One was just like, I think you probably already know this, but for anyone who's tuning in, when
Hmm.
you kind of hit these speed bumps and the brain goes into like this problem solving, like should I do this, maybe that. I think a nice way to meet this is just one with the awareness, just seeing like, aha, my brain is trying this problem solving thing, which
Yeah.
there's no need for, which is the awareness. But then when something happens and you do something, you realize like, oh, I did go to bed extra late to try to achieve some more sleep. Then you can meet it with kindness, like, well, of course there's nothing wrong with that. I think that
It's
awareness
normal.
is kindness,
Yeah.
right? It's totally normal,
That's really what helps me.
right?
I just like, it's totally normal. Like this is like, not everybody sleeps all the time perfectly. You have days that you don't sleep, and okay, so I didn't sleep so well. And then I'm like, I'm just hyper aroused, or I woke up early and I got angry. Well, how are you supposed to sleep when you're angry? When you get in a fight with your husband or your friend or whoever, you're not going to go to sleep. You're going to be thinking about it. So what's the difference? Oh, so because I'm going through this period now, so I should sleep perfectly every single day. So it doesn't work that way. you know.
You're such a, you're doing such amazing self-coaching. And then the final question here is, if you had a chance to, talk to yourself, say something to yourself when this all started, when you were in that that panic loop, what would you say to yourself?
Well, what I would say to myself is, I think kind of what, when you're being kind to yourself like that, like what depending on how I'm feeling, I would just say kind of what I would say to a friend,
Yes.
that, first of all, everything that you go through, it passes. And I would just remind myself that, I've been through a lot in my life, and this is just another challenge that I will overcome this challenge, just like I have with so many other challenges. You forget some of the things that you go through in life, you forget sometimes. This is why my counselor wants me to journal, of course. Like you forget how you've overcome
So,
these battles,
yeah,
but we have. I mean, we're here,
that's
like
right.
life is hard.
That's right.
So that's kind of what I would just, that this too shall pass and you're going to be okay.
Love it. That's wonderful. Thanks so much, Ilona, for being here and for sharing this, and be in touch, and we'll talk again. Okay.
For sure. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye now.